second attempt. So I'm going to try and record a short video as I walk through the park and test my new microphone once again to see if it's any louder. The last time wasn't particularly satisfactory. It's a beautiful evening here in Albion and a beautiful time to be out in the sticks. So here goes. Let me try and change my glasses, get my stick going. The first part is going to be a bit jumpy because it's a very steep slope in front of me that I have to get down, and caution is required. So now then, glasses, phone, staff, bag, coat. Here's everything in its proper place. Why I brought a coat, I don't know. I don't need one today. But there we go. So down the slope. It looks quite light on the screen, but it's quite dark, I think, actually, compared to the screen. The screen shows a clearer picture than my actual eyes. The wonders of technology. There we go. That's got it. And up we go to the meadow. This is a place I could experiment with wild camping, I think, when I'm feeling ready for it, which is not just yet. But there's certainly spots here where I could spend a night without attracting attention. It's difficult to do it when I'm so near home, because I suppose the temptation to just walk a mile or two and have a soft bed would be quite high compared to sleeping somewhere in the Black Mountains where there's no soft beds or home comforts readily available. This is the meadow that I come up to. As you can see, it's a sunny, beautiful day. And if I get to the top of this, which I hope to, there are a couple of benches where a man can have a pause and think about the world. It's my favourite subject of contemplation. It's a lovely spot up here, I must say. I've sort of discovered it since I started walking regularly, and now I come here almost every day and do a few circuits because it's well away from the traffic and it's just peaceful. And today, because it's Sunday, there'll be more people around. During the week, quite often you get a few dog walkers, but sometimes it's deserted. Depends on the time. I've been through here in the dark, and I'm pretty sure it was just me and the foxes. So I went past a fellow who was keeping some chickens in his garden. It's unusual around here now. 60 years ago, my auntie had chickens in a house near me. She was a proper country lady, and she knew how to keep chickens, kept them all her life. She knew how to sort them out when they were misbehaving, and she always had her own chickens' eggs. She had a big garden too, so I don't know whether I'll follow suit with that. I've been told that chickens are kind of smelly and troublesome to look after, and I'm not a huge fan of eggs. I eat eggs, but I don't find them to be perfect for my diet at the moment. I like the yolks more than the whites, but it might be worth doing in the future. The thing I should keep is a sheep. I mean, the grass in my garden is so big. If I had a sheep, I could just let it graze, I think, and then I'd have a nice fattened sheep ready for market when the autumn sets in. It's probably not big enough anyway. I suppose keeping a sheep isn't as easy as it sounds. You'd probably want to keep a whole flock. Just keeping the one, the poor fellow, the poor lady would get miserable alone, maybe. I didn't know anything about these things. Farming is, we've not been taught it. It's something that other people did. And when I went to Italy, quite a few of the people living in the city had relatives living on a farm, the family farm up in the hills. The younger generation left the mountains sort of from 1960 onwards en masse. But in the 1980s, very often the parents or grandparents certainly would be up in the old family home in the mountains, and we went to visit people from time to time. It was nice. But I think that's more or less died out now. The mountains have become more and more uninhabited, and the homes have gone to holiday makers for short summer lets, as nobody wants to everybody's willing to enjoy the beautiful weather in the summer, but of course winter is a different story up there. It does get pretty cold and icy and snowy, and that's what finally persuaded me to leave, but with some regret, because it's just such a beautiful place to live in the more or less in the wilderness, even though I was only about 50 miles from the nearest city. But once you take the mountain road, things just become more and more rural and rustic, and the frequency of buildings decreases gradually, and you get deer on the road and all this sort of stuff. It's really cool, especially in the autumn when I first went there, driving up through rainy, dismal weather and just coming into this quiet, rainy wilderness. Just amazing. And I got into the cottage and got the fire going, and I had a great time in my short stay. I think I was only there for about 6 months, maybe a bit longer than 6 months. I had a stereo system with a pair of big JBL studio monitor speakers that belonged to somebody that didn't need them, I don't know. And I used to turn it up at full volume, not full volume, but plenty loud. Wasn't causing any problems because my nearest neighbours were about 2 miles away. Not quite that, a mile away, shall we say. The nearest village was about 3 or 4 miles down the mountain, and there was a footpath to get there, and I used to do it from time to time. I'm probably fitter now than I was then. I was smoking, and I remember getting back up to the cottage after going down to the village to buy some supplies or stretch my legs. It was quite a struggle. There's a fair old height distance. I don't know quite how much, but I was living on the side of the valley, and the little town was in the V of the valley at a crossing point at a bridge, an old bridge, and absolutely architecturally beautiful. But funnily enough, the village was quite shaded because of its aspect, whereas the cottage I had rented was just gloriously sunlit for hours and hours and hours. The sun would go over the the mountain which I was facing is quite a big mountain, and the village would be in darkness for many hours of the day. And people on the side of the valley that I was living on would say that it was reflected in the character of the people that were born there and that lived in those cottages, whereas the people on my side of the mountain had a different outlook on life, they claimed. I mean, these things were just anecdotal, of course. They did reckon that they could recognise dialogue differences and menu differences as well between the two sides of the valley. That's the way it would have been in the olden days. Life was pretty interesting in a way. But, with no people, you're just left with your thoughts. And there's a risk of cabin fever, I suppose. I'm already solitary. If I go and live in the middle of the wilderness, then that's the last anybody will hear of me. I understand that could be good from many perspectives. But I don't think it would be entirely healthy. There we go. Right then, so I shall set off back down the mountain, back down the hill, and complete my walk. I don't know whether I've got any great philosophical insights to share, if I have ever had any at this point in time. I'm just working today, and when I work, my mind is emptied of other thoughts, really. I'm doing a manual, and it's obviously been written by an electrical technician. The details of the description of the electrical equipment are tremendous, and I'm having to do a lot of research, which is slightly annoying because it means that I'm going a lot more slowly than would otherwise be possible. But I find now that with my work, kind of the Lord tells me when to do it, and so I don't need to fret about it too much. He'll set me down in front of the computer at a certain time of the day, and I know then that I'm going to work efficiently and with great concentration, and I'll do it for a few hours, and then I just have to get up and move, and so I do that. And I always finish my work within the allotted time, which is my aim, of course, absent any impediments in terms of major translation difficulties. Quite often the text will contain some nonsense that's, so the source text hasn't been revised properly, and I have to flag it and get into the field of interpretation. A lot of translation is interpretation, of course. You have to understand to some level what you're writing about, and then the penny will drop. Hopefully, not all pennies drop, but many do these days. After all these years, sat in front of the screen and simultaneously on the left-hand screen watching Neighbours, the Australian sitcom, which I'm really enjoying. The impression of those sitcoms that I used to have, and many people seem to have, is that they're just soap and second-rate entertainment. But I've been following this particular one, and I think they're all like that, actually. They're very subtle and very carefully crafted, and to me very interesting. The more I'm able to deconstruct them, the more insights I can glean, and I can see the way that narratives are being pursued, but the truth is often in there as well, and in unexpected places. And it's interesting the way that they pursue their alphabet agenda. Of course, I think this series that I'm watching at the moment is from about 2015, and it's all in full swing, and the medical agenda is already being laid down in preparation for a few years later when there's going to be the pandemic, which in Australia, of course, was particularly rigidly policed. I've got an Australian friend online who's told me that it was actually like that. We saw it in the newspapers, but you can't know until somebody locally confirms. And back into the woods. Just beautiful. I don't see many animals here, certainly at this time of the year, and yet there must be plenty of foxes. The squirrels, of course, and birds. But they obviously keep a low profile when people like me are plodding around, making a noise. I do see quite a few robins at this time of the year. They're such tame birds. They seem quite unafraid of me, really. I'm a great lover of wildlife, and birds in particular. Taken after my mother in that, I think. Good evening. She was a huge fan of the garden birds, which have greatly disappeared in this country, and this is thanks to the grey squirrels largely. This is a nice passage. It's like a little tunnel, and it seems to, when you come out the end of it, you seem to be higher than when you went in, and yet there's no grade. So I'm imbuing it with magical properties light-heartedly. And this tree is claimed to be the oldest tree in the woods. It's an old oak tree, and it's used by the New Age people to have some ceremonies and some chanting and drumming and hugging from time to time, although I've never managed to actually witness one of those ceremonies, but the witch told me that this is where they hang out and do their thing. So I am quite keen to be able to see it at some point in time. Who knows? And then there's a bottom meadow down here, and more walking down to the very bottom of the stream, where it begins its short run to the river that is forded near my house. I think some people have had a fire over there, a campfire at night, so I guess people do come in here at night sometimes and manage to have an undisturbed meeting, or maybe it's an official meeting by the Boy Scouts or something. Right, I'll leave it at that because otherwise it'll be too long. I hope it's audible.